Hi there, welcome to Film After 11. My name is Joshua Zeiber, editor of the Video File Movie and Home Theater blog. Joining me as co host this week is my son Joseph.
Hello.
As a person who has loved movies his entire life, I created this podcast as a way of trying to instill some sort of film appreciation into my children. Now, as part of that, we do sometimes watch movies that I think my kids would probably not pick themselves, may not have ever heard of, and may even be sometimes a little bit outside their comfort zones. In addition to that, this year we've been following a theme for completely arbitrary reasons of doing movies in alphabetical order, and this week brings us to the letter N. So, with all that in mind, what we're going to watch is Naked Lunch. Director David Cronenberg's exploration of writer's block, drug addiction, paranoia, body horror, and all sorts of other fun stuff. Does that sound like a
Yay.
good deal for you, Joseph?
Yay, I love drugs.
That's not something any parent wants to hear. So, as I'm thinking about this, maybe that's not the way to go for a 12-year-old kid. All right. Maybe we'll recalibrate here and try something different. Joseph, I think what we're actually going to watch today is your first Alfred Hitchcock movie. Because I don't think you've watched any before. And to that end, I think we'll pick possibly the most Hitchcockian of all Hitchcock movies, his 1959 thriller, North by Northwest. Joseph, do you know much about Alfred Hitchcock?
No.
Have you ever known the nickname that has gone by?
No.
All right, he was known as the Master of Suspense. And again, this is one of his most famous movies, one of the most like typical. I don't even know that typical is the right word for it, but one of the movies that just really fits into his genre the most. I think you'll enjoy it. So if you're up for this, let's find our bearings and head out.
And what the devil is all this about? Why was I brought here?
Games? Must we?
Not that I mind a slight case of abduction now and then, but I have tickets for the theater this evening. To a show I was looking forward to. And I get, well, kind of unreasonable about things like that.
Okay, we are back from watching North by Northwest, and I don't know about you, Joseph, but I'm feeling underdressed. Like, I feel like I should be wearing a gray suit with a lovely gray tie.
Eh. No,
not,
no
not your
thanks.
style.
Nah.
All right. Joseph, I'm a little afraid to ask what you thought of this movie because I could feel you squirming a bit during it.
Yeah, I felt like that it kind of wasn't very exciting and that it kind of just felt like any other like chase movies that I've seen.
Okay. All right. That's sad. Um, this is considered a classic movie, obviously. And it's by Alfred Hitchcock, who is one of the masters of the form, and it's one of his most popular movies. But I understand what you're saying, and let's address a couple of those points here. One is that it felt like a lot of other movies that you've seen.
Yeah.
I think that's primarily because a lot of movies have imitated Alfred Hitchcock,
Yeah.
and this one in particular. Can you think of another movie we've seen for this podcast that you would make a connection with?
The Fugitive.
Yes. Okay. Very good. The theme of the wrong man who's wrongfully accused of something and has to go on the run, especially from law enforcement, was a theme that Alfred Hitchcock used throughout his career. It was one of his most popular themes, and it worked. It continued to work, and he did it a lot. And so a lot of other movies have also followed that formula, and The Fugitive being a main one. I'm very glad you made that connection. As far as the pacing goes, keep in mind that this is an older movie and that the style of filmmaking is different today than it used to be. What what Hitchcock was trying to do, and it is, this movie, I'm not going to deny, it's a slow burn. It takes a long time setting up the story and then before the big payoffs. And it doesn't really have a lot of action in it. It has, two big set pieces, one in the middle and then one at the end. And then, before that, there's not a lot because it's not an action movie, really. It's a thriller, but it's not a modern thriller where it's, go, 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 run, run, run. And there's, shooting and all sorts of, explosions and all sorts of stuff going on. This is a classic thriller where, wow, you're yawning already in the middle of this, where Hitchcock takes his time to set up the story, and he was very meticulous in doing that in his filmmaking, where he puts everything in place very carefully, lays out the story, and then lets it pay off in the end, as opposed to having a constant stream of action in it. And modern movies have moved in the more action direction, primarily because audiences' attention spans have shrunk. And I get it that, your generation especially has, you're used to like watching short videos on YouTube and TikTok. And that's the pace of things that your attention is constantly jumping to. I think that you have a good attention span in general, Joseph, but I understand why you felt that this was slow. Okay, so that being the case, did you find at least the two big set pieces suspenseful in the movie?
Well, I think that it was obviously Mount Rushmore.
And the other one being?
I'm trying to remember the movie.
Okay. The cornfield scene,
Yeah.
the crop duster scene is the other very famous scene in this movie. Did you like those scenes?
Yeah, I'd say so.
That sounds a little dubious there. What didn't you like about them?
I don't know. I think it might have just been because they weren't like as action filled as like in The Fugitive or.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think this is meant to be an action film, and especially since the main character is not an action hero.
Yeah.
He's just an advertising guy who, at the beginning of the movie, is very cocky and very arrogant and very sarcastic towards everyone.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be an action hero. He just wants to go home and go to his whatever he had scheduled and go have a martini. That was the kind of guy he was. He wasn't really an action hero, and so any sort of like action type things that happened to him were very unexpected for him, and he wasn't really prepared at first to do with it, and he had to get himself to that at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Mount Rushmore scene, did you at least like that one?
Yeah.
Okay, because I know that was slow paced, but I felt like your attention was more focused on that at the end of the movie than some of the stuff at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. That's obviously a very renowned scene in the movie, and it does move a little slowly, but I think in a way that's effective in that the characters are trying to climb up and down the mountain and they have to move slowly, and even though the pacing isn't very fast, it still feels like suspension, like, oh my god, are they going to fall down and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, or
Yes.
did you just find it too slow for you?
I agree with that.
Okay. What did you think about the Mount Rushmore effect itself? Because, not to spoil it, but they didn't shoot this at Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. Aw.
This was all done on a studio set.
Yeah, I felt like the Mount Rushmore scene looked a little more real than some of the other scenes.
Okay. There was a lot of what's called rear projection in this movie, where the characters were in the studio and then they projected an image behind them, especially in driving scenes. That was a convention at the time that audiences just went with. They didn't really, it wasn't really something that bothered them. But I think, based on today's type of filmmaking, you kind of expect it to look a little more realistic than that.
Yeah.
But it was, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't hate it or anything. I saw it. I wasn't like bothered by it. I just noticed it.
Yeah, it does stand out. I think less so than in, for example,
Yeah.
earlier in a previous episode of this podcast, we'd watched The Parent Trap,
Mm-hmm.
and that had some very blatant
Yes.
examples of rear projection that did not look good at all. This movie, I think, did it a lot better. Part of that is that Hitchcock is just a better filmmaker than the people who made that movie, and also that he was shooting in one of the highest quality film formats of the time. It was called VistaVision, so he really he spared no expense to try and make this as good as he could. But again, it still looks a little fakey at times. There's no doubt. But again, that was just the convention at the time, and people accepted it. All right. Did anything else stand out as notable to you in this movie?
Um, I mean, well, one part that I kind of liked was the auction scene.
Yeah, that was pretty good, where he was pretending to
Yeah.
be a buffoon, bidding on the auction, underbidding everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
2250 once, 2250 twice. Last call.
1,500.
Well, the bid is already up to 2250, sir.
I still say 1,500.
What about just things that are filmmaking type things? Did you notice?
Well, I don't know. I thought the plot was a little bit confusing.
Okay.
But I might have just like not picked up on some of the details. So.
All right. You did ask me a question near the end of the movie. Do you remember what that was? You wanted to know what something was.
Yeah, the microfilm.
Okay, yes. All right, yeah. So inside the little statue that was the whole basis of the plot that the bad guys were trying to get was something called microfilm, which was a common spy device at the time when people were, because they didn't have digital cameras, they had film cameras, and they would use spies would use very tiny cameras with little tiny rolls of film that they could hide in things. And so you'll see that in a lot of old spy movies that's a major thing. But now what this movie doesn't bother to explain is what's on the microfilm and why anyone wants it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's intentional. Hitchcock was fond of a device he called the MacGuffin. And the MacGuffin is something that sets the plot in motion, but isn't really important. And it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just a thing that people want. And so they try to get it. But what it is just a plot device. It doesn't really mean anything.
Tell me, what's Van Damme up to?
Oh, you could say is a sort of importer-exporter.
Of what?
Oh, government secrets, perhaps?
So, Joseph, overall, as I know you had some difficulty with aspects of this movie, but overall, on our rating scale of a W to an L, how do you feel about it?
I don't think this movie was like a made for me, but I do think it was still a good movie, so I'll give it a W.
Okay. I guess that's fair. I think that you should give other movies by this director a chance, because I think that you would probably like some of them, maybe more than this one.
Yeah.
Because he does actually have movies that move at a much faster pace than this sometimes. A few of them. Well, he made a lot of movies in his career, and most of them are really good. But you may like some of his other movies better, and you may come back around to this one later.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think I mentioned at the beginning of this is that this movie is kind of considered one of the most Hitchcockian of Hitchcock movies, in that when he made it, it was sort of like a greatest hits assembly of things that he'd done in other movies. The wrong man and the love interest, and just a lot of things that he was kind of winking at the audience, like, I've done this before, but now I'm just going to do it better. I think you did a good job with this. I think that if you watch this again in the future, that you will probably appreciate it, especially once you see more Hitchcock movies.
Yep.
Okay. I think that about wraps it up today, unless you had something else you want to talk about.
Nah.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm still a little sad you didn't like this more, but I guess I understand. So, if you in the audience enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe.
Please subscribe.
And until next time, good evening. That's actually from another Hitchcock thing, but it's all I got.
Yeah.
Okay. remember what I'm going to say. That's the hard part.
Yeah, you gotta remember that. So remember it.
Blah, 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 blah.
Why would you say that?
Blah, 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 blah.
Huh?
Blah,
Oh, okay.
blah.